I woke up in the pediatric ward to the sound of machines beeping and the smell of antiseptic burning my nostrils. My head throbbed, my ribs ached, and for a moment I didn't remember why I was here. Then it all came rushing back. The stairs, the fall, my mother's cold eyes as she'd turned away. "Someone will pick you up tomorrow," she'd said, not even looking back. That was 3 days ago. I was 12 years old, lying in a hospital bed with a concussion and 2 cracked ribs, and no one had come. The nurses kept asking when my family would arrive. I'd stopped answering. I just stared at the ceiling tiles and counted the water stains, wondering if this time they'd forget me entirely. But here's the thing they didn't know, the thing no one could possibly know. I'd lived this all before. I died at 23 in my first life. Alone in a tiny apartment, sick and abandoned, with no money for medicine because my family had drained every penny I'd ever earned. My sister Claire had been getting married that day, a lavish wedding paid for with my college fund. I'd watched the photos on social media from my deathbed, too weak to even cry anymore. Then I woke up as my 12-year-old self, the morning of my first day of middle school, with every memory intact. At first, I'd thought I could change things. I'd be better, smarter, kinder. I'd make them love me. For 6 months, I tried. I got straight A's. I did all the chores. I never complained when Claire got the new clothes and I got her hand-me-downs. I smiled when Dad forgot my birthday but threw Claire a party with 100 guests. Nothing changed. They still looked at me like I was an inconvenience. Mom still snapped at me for breathing too loudly. Claire still borrowed my things and never returned them. Dad still worked late every night except when Claire needed something. And now, here I was again. Same hospital, same fall down the stairs, though this time I knew it wasn't quite an accident. Claire had been angry that I'd scored higher on the entrance exam for the prestigious art program we'd both applied to. She'd been standing behind me at the top of the stairs. I'd felt her hand on my back. I couldn't prove it. I never could. That was the thing about Claire. She was too smart to leave evidence, too charming for anyone to suspect her of cruelty. But I remembered how this played out. In my first life, I'd waited in this hospital for 5 days before a social worker got involved. Mom had been furious, not at herself for forgetting me, but at me for causing a scene. The incident had gone on my record. Problem child, they'd called me. Attention-seeking behavior. This time would be different. I waited until the nurse left for her break, then carefully pulled myself out of bed. Every movement sent pain shooting through my ribs, but I'd learned to push through worse. I'd died once already. A little pain was nothing. I found my clothes in the small closet, the cheap jeans, with the hole in the knee, the faded t-shirt that used to be Claire's. My phone was there too, the screen cracked from the fall. It still worked. I had $37 in my pocket. Not much, but I'd hidden more over the past 6 months. Small amounts, taken from the grocery money when Mom sent me to the store. Quarters from Claire's purse. $1 here and there from Dad's car. Nothing they'd miss. Everything I'd need. I knew what I had to do. In my first life, I'd been helpless, dependent, trapped. I'd let them control me because I'd thought I had no choice. I'd thought family meant everything, that blood was supposed to matter. I'd learned better. I texted Mom, discharged myself, found a ride. Don't worry about picking me up. I knew she wouldn't worry. She'd be relieved. Then I walked out of that hospital, every step agony, and I didn't look back. The thing about being reborn is that you have an incredible advantage. You know exactly what's coming. You know which stocks will boom, which companies will fail, which lottery numbers will hit. You know who will betray you and who will stay true. But more than that, you know yourself. You know your weaknesses, your mistakes, your blind spots. In my first life, I'd been weak because I'd craved their love. I'd twisted myself into knots trying to earn affection that would never come. I'd let them take and take and take until there was nothing left of me. Not this time. I took a bus to the other side of the city, to a neighborhood I'd never visited in my first life. I found a small public library and spent the afternoon there, planning. The librarian, a kind woman named Mrs. Chen, noticed my careful movements and the way I winced when I breathed too deeply. "Are you all right, sweetheart?" she asked. I'd prepared for this. I'm fine, just got over being sick. My mom's picking me up later. She didn't look convinced, but she didn't push. Instead, she brought me a cup of hot chocolate and a cookie from her lunch. It was the first genuine kindness anyone had shown me in this timeline. I cried in the library bathroom for 5 minutes, then washed my face and got back to work. I had 6 years until I turned 18. 6 years to build a life they couldn't touch. 6 years to become so far beyond their reach that they could never hurt me again. But that wasn't enough. Because I didn't just want to escape, I wanted justice. I wanted them to understand what they'd done. I wanted them to feel even a fraction of the pain they'd caused me. I wanted revenge. And thanks to my foreknowledge, I knew exactly how to get it. The first few months were the hardest. I couldn't go home, not yet. I needed them to forget about me entirely, to move on with their lives without even wondering where I'd gone. It turned out to be easier than I'd expected. Mom called exactly once, 2 days after I left the hospital. I let it go to voicemail. Her message was curt. "Where are you? The school called. Call me back." I didn't. She never called again. I later learned, through careful social media stalking, that she'd told people I'd gone to stay with a friend whose family had moved away. She was having trouble adjusting, she said in a Facebook post. We thought a change of scenery would be good for her. The comments were all supportive. "You're such a good mother for recognizing what she needed. It must be so hard to let her go. Claire must miss her sister so much." Claire had responded, "I do miss her, but I'm proud of her for being brave enough to try something new." The lie was so perfect, so complete that no one questioned it. Why would they? My mother was a respected member of the PTA. My father was a successful lawyer. Claire was popular, beautiful, talented. I was the troubled one, the difficult one, the one who never quite fit. Let them think I'd run away to some non-existent friend. Let them think they were rid of me. I was building something they couldn't imagine. Mrs. Chen from the library became my first ally, though she didn't know it. I started volunteering at the library after school, or rather, during school hours, since I wasn't attending anymore. I wore a baseball cap and kept my head down. In a city of millions, one 12-year-old girl was easy to overlook. I told Mrs. Chen I was homeschooled. She believed me because I spent every free moment reading. Not children's books, but books on business, finance, law, psychology. I read everything I could about narcissistic families, about financial independence, about the art market, because I had a secret weapon. I knew the future. I knew that a young digital artist named Zara Chen was about to explode onto the scene. In my first life, her first NFT collection had sold for $23 million. She'd been 14 when she started, working from her bedroom with a cheap tablet. I knew because I'd followed her career obsessively in my first life. While my family had drained my bank accounts, I'd dreamed of being like her, free, successful, untouchable. Now I could be better. I took my saved money, $237 by the end of the first month, and bought a used tablet from a pawn shop. I taught myself to draw using free YouTube tutorials. I practiced for 8 hours a day, every day, hidden in the back corner of the library or in the storage room Mrs. Chen let me use. My hands remembered things my conscious mind didn't. Muscle memory from a life that hadn't happened yet. I improved faster than should have been possible. "You're very talented," Mrs. Chen said one day, looking over my shoulder at a digital painting of a phoenix rising from ashes. "Have you considered art school?" "Maybe someday," I said, saving the file. "Right now I'm just practicing." What I didn't tell her was that I was building a portfolio, that I was creating art under a pseudonym, posting it on platforms where age didn't matter, that I was carefully, methodically building a following. I called myself Phoenix online. The irony wasn't lost on me. By the time I was 13, I had 10,000 followers. By 14, 50,000. I sold my first piece, a digital illustration of a girl with stars in her hair, for $500. I cried when the payment hit my secret PayPal account. It was the first money I'd ever earned that was truly mine. By 15, I was making more per month than my father did as a lawyer. By 16, I was famous in the digital art world, though no one knew my real name or face. Phoenix was a mystery, an enigma, an artist who never gave interviews and never showed their face. And through it all, I watched my family from a distance. Social media made it easy to keep tabs on them. Mom posted constantly, pictures of Claire at dance recitals, Claire at award ceremonies, Claire's perfect grades, Claire's perfect life. Dad was tagged in photos at Claire's events, always smiling, always proud. They never mentioned me. It was like I'd never existed. Claire was thriving. She'd gotten into the prestigious art program I'd been meant to attend. She was popular, talented, beloved. Her Instagram was full of photos with friends, photos of her artwork, photos of the life I might have had. But I noticed things others wouldn't. The way her smile never quite reached her eyes. The way she posted obsessively like she was trying to prove something. The comments she left on other people's posts, always just slightly barbed, slightly cruel, disguised as jokes. She hadn't changed. She'd just gotten better at hiding it. I watched her steal ideas from smaller artists, changing them just enough to claim them as her own. I watched her befriend people only to drop them when they were no longer useful. I watched her manipulate situations to make herself look good and others look bad. I documented everything: screenshots, saved posts, recorded videos. I built a file that would have made a prosecutor weep with joy. But I wasn't ready yet, because the revenge I had planned wasn't just about Claire. When I was 17, Mom posted about Claire's upcoming art show. So proud of my daughter. She's being featured at the Meridian Gallery, the youngest artist ever. Come celebrate with us on March 15th. The Meridian Gallery. I knew that place. In my first life, I'd walked past it 1,000 times, dreaming of having my work displayed there. It was the most prestigious gallery in the city, the kind of place that could make or break an artistic career. Claire was 18 now, about to graduate high school. This show was supposed to launch her career, to prove she was a serious artist worthy of the full-ride scholarship to the Royal Academy of Arts she'd been offered. The scholarship that should have been mine. I smiled when I read the post, because I knew something they didn't. The Meridian Gallery's director, Victoria Hartwell, was a close friend of someone I'd been cultivating a relationship with for 5 years. Marcus Chen, Ms. Chen's son, and one of the most influential art critics in the country. I'd met him when I was 14, when he'd come to visit his mother at the library. He'd seen my work, not as Phoenix, but as me, a nameless girl drawing in the corner. He'd been impressed enough to give me his card and tell me to contact him if I ever wanted advice. I'd waited 3 years to take him up on that offer. When I finally did, I'd done it as Phoenix. He'd loved my work. He'd written articles about me, built my reputation, helped me secure commissions. He thought he was mentoring a shy, reclusive artist who reminded him of his younger self. He had no idea I was the girl from the library. I'd made sure of that. Now it was time to play my cards. I want to do a show, I told Marcus over an encrypted video call. I never showed my face. Phoenix always used a voice modulator and a blank screen. That's wonderful, Marcus said, his enthusiasm genuine. I've been hoping you'd be ready to step into the public eye. I have several galleries that would kill to feature you. I want the Meridian, I said. And I want it on March 15th. There was a pause. That's very specific. May I ask why that date? Personal reasons, I said. I know they have another artist showing that night. A young woman named Claire Montgomery. I've seen her work. Ah, yes, Victoria mentioned her. Local talent, apparently quite promising. I'd like to share the space with her, I said. A joint exhibition. Emerging artists, one established online, one traditional. It could be interesting. I could practically hear Marcus thinking, that's actually a brilliant concept. The contrast between digital and traditional, anonymous and public. Victoria would love it. But are you sure? Sharing the spotlight on your first major show? I'm sure, I said. In fact, I insist on it. I'll make it happen, Marcus promised. He did, because when Phoenix wanted something, people in the art world listened. I watched the announcement go up on the Meridian Gallery's website. Emergence, a dual exhibition featuring Claire Montgomery and Phoenix. Mom's Facebook post was immediate. Even more exciting news. Claire will be sharing her first major exhibition with the mysterious digital artist Phoenix. What an honor. So proud. The comments poured in. Everyone was excited. Phoenix was a huge name, mysterious, successful, wealthy. Being associated with Phoenix was a massive boost for any artist's career. Claire posted too, incredibly honored to share space with @Phoenix. Can't wait for everyone to see our work together. This is a dream come true. I could read between the lines. She was furious. This was supposed to be her night, her moment. Now she had to share it. Good. The next 3 weeks, I worked harder than I'd ever worked. I created new pieces specifically for this show, pieces that told a story. A girl alone in a hospital, a child standing at the bottom of stairs, looking up, a family portrait with one figure fading into nothing, a phoenix rising from ashes that looked suspiciously like dollar bills. Each piece was beautiful, haunting, technically perfect. But more than that, they were personal. They were my story, displayed for the world to see. I also did my research. I dug into Claire's portfolio for the show, pieces that had been posted in preview images. And I found exactly what I'd been looking for, evidence of plagiarism. 4 of her 15 pieces were copies. Not direct copies, but close enough that any art expert would recognize the theft. She'd taken compositions from smaller artists on Instagram and Pinterest, artists with only a few hundred followers, people who'd never notice or couldn't afford to sue. In my first life, she'd gotten away with it. No one had cared enough to look closely. This time, I'd make sure they did. I arrived at the Meridian Gallery 3 hours before the opening. I wore a black dress I'd bought specifically for this occasion, simple but elegant and expensive. My hair was different, longer, dyed a deep red instead of my natural brown. I'd lost the baby fat from my 12-year-old face. At 17, I was almost 18. I looked nothing like the child they'd forgotten. I looked like someone they should have remembered. The gallery was stunning, all white walls and perfect lighting. My pieces were displayed on the left side of the main room, Claire's on the right. Even from a distance, I could see the difference. My work was technically superior, more emotionally resonant, more mature. But Claire's wasn't bad. That was the thing, she was talented. In another life, without me, she might have had a real career. She just shouldn't have built it on lies and stolen ideas. Victoria Hartwell found me examining my own work. She was a tall, elegant woman in her 50s, the kind of person who could make you feel small with a glance. "You must be one of the early guests," she said. "We're not quite open yet." "I'm Phoenix," I said simply. Her eyes went wide. "Phoenix? But we weren't expecting you to actually attend. You never do public appearances." "This one is special," I said. "I wanted to be here in person." Of course, this is wonderful. Would you be willing to, I won't do interviews or photos," I said firmly. I'm here to see the show, nothing more. I'd appreciate discretion." "Absolutely," Victoria said, though I could see her mentally calculating how to use my presence to her advantage. "Let me show you to the VIP area. We have a private room where you can watch the event without being disturbed." Perfect. From the VIP room, really just a small office with a one-way window overlooking the main gallery, I watched the guests arrive. The room filled quickly. Important people, art collectors, critics, journalists. Marcus was there, looking excited. Mrs. Chen was there too. I'd made sure she received an invitation. And then my family arrived. I hadn't seen them in person in 5 years. Mom looked the same, maybe a few more lines around her eyes. Dad had gained weight and lost hair. And Claire looked beautiful. She wore a flowing white dress, her dark hair in perfect curls. She looked like the princess she'd always been treated as. She moved through the room with confidence, greeting guests, laughing at jokes, playing the role of the charming young artist. I watched her and I felt nothing but cold satisfaction. Victoria gave the opening speech, talking about emerging talent and the future of art. Then it was time for the artist to speak. Claire went first. She talked about her inspiration, her process, her journey. She was well-rehearsed, charming. People ate it up. "And I have to say," she concluded, "what an honor it is to share this space with Phoenix. I've been a huge fan of their work. To be in the same exhibition is beyond my wildest dreams. Applause. Mom was crying proud tears. Dad was recording on his phone. Then Victoria turned to me, or rather, to the empty space where Phoenix should have been. Unfortunately, Phoenix has chosen to maintain their anonymity and won't be speaking tonight, Victoria said, but their work speaks for itself. I watched the crowd turn to examine my pieces. I watched them lean in close, studying the details. I watched Marcus explaining the symbolism to a journalist. And then I watched Claire's face as people started to notice something. "This composition," one woman said, pointing at one of Claire's pieces. "It looks familiar." "Oh, I know what you mean," her companion said. "I swear I've seen something like this before." Another guest pulled out her phone. "Wait, yes, there's an artist on Instagram. You could let me find it." I'd planted the seeds carefully over the past week. Anonymous tips to art bloggers, side-by-side comparisons posted on forums, whispers to collectors. Not enough to cause a scandal before the show, but enough that people would be looking. And now they were looking. "Here," the woman said, holding up her phone. "This artist, at Small Wonders Art, posted 6 months ago. The composition is nearly identical." Claire's face went pale. Obviously there's some similarity, but art is always influenced by this one too," someone else said, checking another piece. "And this one. At least 4 pieces have concerning similarities to other artists' work." The murmur grew louder. People were pulling out phones, searching, comparing. Victoria was trying to maintain control, but even she looked concerned. Marcus approached Claire. "Ms. Montgomery, these are serious accusations. Can you provide sketches, preliminary work, something to prove the originality of these pieces?" Of course, I have sketches at home. I just didn't think to bring them." "You didn't think to bring proof of your creative process to your first major exhibition?" Marcus's voice was cold. Mom pushed forward. "How dare you attack my daughter? She's worked so hard for this. You're just jealous because she's young and talented." "Mrs. Montgomery," Victoria said quietly, "we take plagiarism very seriously. If these accusations have merits, They don't. This is ridiculous. Claire, tell them." But Claire was crying now, mascara running down her face. "I didn't mean to. I was inspired by them, that's all. Inspiration isn't theft." "Inspiration with credit is homage," Marcus said. "Inspiration without credit, that is theft. And this," he gestured at the pieces, "this is theft." I watched it all from my private room, and I felt the first crack in the ice around my heart. This was what I'd wanted. This was justice. But I wasn't done yet. I waited until the scandal had reached its peak, until Claire was sobbing and Mom was screaming and Dad was trying to usher them out, until Victoria was apologizing to guests and Marcus was already typing on his phone, no doubt writing an article. Then I walked out of the VIP room and into the main gallery. "Actually," I said, my voice carrying across the space, "I think there's been a misunderstanding." Everyone turned. Victoria looked confused. "Miss Phoenix, you don't need to I want to clarify something," I said, walking to the center of the room. I stood between Claire's work and mine, right in the spotlight. "Claire Montgomery isn't just another artist to me. She's my sister." The room went silent. Mom's mouth dropped open. Dad looked like he'd seen a ghost. Claire's face was a mask of shock and horror. "My name is Evelyn Montgomery," I continued. 5 years ago, when I was 12, I fell down the stairs at our house. I spent 3 days in the hospital with a concussion and cracked ribs. My family forgot to pick me up." "That's not," Mom started, but I held up a hand. "Please, let me finish. When I realized no one was coming, I left. I taught myself digital art. I built a career. I became Phoenix." I gestured at the walls around us. All of this, the success, the money, the fame, I did it alone, without family support, without a college fund, without anything but my own determination. I turned to Claire. "And while I was doing that, You were stealing from smaller artists to build your career, using mom and dad's connections, their money, their support. Everything you have was given to you. Everything I have, I earned. Evelyn? Mom's voice was small, broken. Is it really you? Did you ever bother to find out? I asked. Did you report me missing? Did you hire a private investigator? Did you spend even one day looking for me? The silence was damning. You told people I went to stay with friends, I said. You made up a lie and moved on. You erased me, so I erased myself and became someone you couldn't ignore. I pulled out my phone and opened an app. With a few taps, I transferred money, a lot of money, directly to Victoria's gallery account. That's $500,000, I said. I'm purchasing all of Claire's pieces. They'll be removed from the show immediately. Consider it a commission for the space. My work will remain. Victoria checked her phone, eyes widening. I don't know what to say. Say thank you, I suggested. And perhaps reconsider who you feature in the future. Talent matters, but integrity matters more. I turned back to my family. They looked smaller somehow, diminished. Mom was crying. Dad looked aged 10 years in 10 minutes. Claire just stared at me like I was a stranger. I'm not doing this for revenge, I said, though that was only partially true. I'm doing this so you understand what you lost. I'm doing this so you see who I became without you. And I'm doing this so you never forget me again. Marcus stepped forward. Evelyn, Phoenix, I had no idea. If I'd known, you didn't need to know, I said gently. You helped me because my work was good, not because of who I was. That's how it should be. What happens now? Victoria asked. Now, I smiled. Now I go back to my life. I have commissions to complete, a show in Paris next month, and a book deal to negotiate. Phoenix has a busy schedule. I looked at my family one last time. You can go now. You're not welcome at my events anymore. Evelyn, please, Mom said, reaching for me. We didn't know. If we'd known you were successful, rich, famous, would that have made a difference? I stepped back from her touch. You forgot a 12-year-old child in a hospital. That tells me everything I need to know about your love. I walked toward the exit, but Mrs. Chen caught my arm. She was crying. You were that girl, she whispered. The one who volunteered at the library. I should have known. I should have helped more. You helped exactly as much as you should have, I said, squeezing her hand. You were kind when no one else was. You gave me a safe space to grow. That was everything. I'm so proud of you, she said. Those words I'd never heard from my mother, made me cry for the first time that night. The story broke nationally by morning. Phoenix revealed child prodigy abandoned by family becomes anonymous art icon, read the headline in the New York Times. Marcus's article, fair but damning, detailed everything. My disappearance, my family's negligence, Claire's plagiarism, my success. The art world rallied around me. Other artists shared their own stories of family betrayal and finding success despite obstacles. Commissions poured in. 3 publishers offered book deals. A Netflix documentary crew wanted to follow my story. Claire's scholarship to the Royal Academy was revoked. The gallery removed all her pieces, even the ones I'd purchased. Her Instagram, once full of supportive comments, was now flooded with accusations and anger. She deleted it within a week. Mom and Dad released a statement. We love all our children and are devastated by this misunderstanding. We never walk away, stopped looking for Evelyn and are thrilled to have found her again. It was a lie and everyone knew it. The statement only made things worse. Dad's law firm quietly suggested he take early retirement. Mom was removed from the PTA board. Their friends, those carefully cultivated social connections, melted away. I watched it all from my penthouse apartment, the one I'd bought with my own money, and I felt not quite satisfaction, not quite joy. Something more complex. Justice, maybe. Or freedom. 6 months later, I was preparing for my Paris show when my phone rang. Unknown number, but I answered it. Evelyn? Claire's voice, small and broken. It's me. I said nothing. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, she continued. I know I don't deserve it, but I needed to tell you. I'm sorry for everything. For the stares, for taking your opportunities, for not standing up for you, for being the person I was. Okay, I said simply. I've been in therapy, she said, trying to understand why I did those things. The jealousy, the cruelty. It doesn't excuse it, but Mom and Dad set us up to compete. They made love conditional on achievement. I was terrified of losing their approval. So you made sure I couldn't compete at all? I said. Yes, her voice broke. I said, I was a monster. I am a monster. No, I said, surprising myself. You were a child trapped in a toxic system. We both were. The difference is you chose to perpetuate the toxicity. I chose to escape it. I know, and you were right to cut us off. All of us, we didn't deserve you. No, I agreed, but you didn't. There was a long pause. I'm not asking for forgiveness, Claire finally said. I know I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know that you were right about everything. And I'm sorry I waited until losing everything to see it. What will you do now? I asked. I don't know. Start over, I guess. Actually earn something for once in my life. Maybe take some classes, learn from real teachers instead of stealing from Instagram artists. Try to become someone worthy of the talent I was given. That sounds like a good plan, Osai, I said. Evelyn, I know I have no right to ask, but do you think maybe someday we could talk again? Not now, not soon, but someday? I thought about it, about the sister I'd had in my first life, who'd stolen my money and never called as I died. About the sister in this life who'd pushed me down the stairs and stolen my dreams. About the person on the phone now who sounded genuinely broken and genuinely sorry. Maybe, I said, in a few years, if you've done the work, if you've become someone different, maybe we can talk. As strangers who share DNA, nothing more. That's more than I deserve, Claire whispered. Thank you. She hung up. I sat in my apartment looking out over the city where I'd once been abandoned, and I realized something. I'd won. Not just the material things, the money, the fame, the success. I'd won something deeper. I'd won myself back. The girl who had died at 23, sick and alone and destroyed by her family's neglect, she was gone. I'd mourned her, avenged her, and finally laid her to rest. The girl who'd woken up at 12 with a second chance, she'd done what she set out to do. She'd survived. She'd thrived. She'd built a life so complete, so full, so undeniably successful that no one could ever overlook her again. And the woman I was now, Phoenix, Evelyn, whoever I chose to be, she was free. My Paris show was a massive success. I sold every piece, broke attendance records, and gave my first public interview. I talked about the importance of supporting young artists, about recognizing talent regardless of background, about how success built on lies always crumbles eventually. I donated $1 million to organizations supporting abandoned and neglected children. I started a scholarship fund for artists from difficult family situations. I bought the building where the library was located and made sure Ms. Chen would never have to worry about funding again. And I worked. I created. I built an empire not just of art, but of support systems for people like me. People who'd been overlooked, underestimated, forgotten. On the anniversary of the day I'd walked out of that hospital, I created a new piece. It was a triptych. The first panel showed a girl alone in a hospital bed, the second showed her walking away into darkness, and the third showed a phoenix made of light, wings spread wide, surrounded by other small birds taking flight. I called it Emergence. It sold for $10 million at auction. I donated every penny to children's hospitals. I never spoke to my parents again. They reached out occasionally, emails, letters, attempts to show up at my events. My security team handled them efficiently. I had nothing to say to people who'd proven that their love was conditional on my silence and compliance. Claire, I kept at a distance. She did do the work, enrolled in art classes at a community college, got a job at a coffee shop, started posting art online under her real name with honest credit to her inspirations. She was building something real this time, something earned. Maybe someday we'd have coffee and talk about the weather, maybe not. Either way, I was fine with it. The most important thing was that I'd built a life they couldn't touch. I'd taken every ounce of pain they'd inflicted and transmuted it into something beautiful. I'd turned abandonment into independence, neglect into self-sufficiency, cruelty into art that moved millions. I'd won not just the battle, but the war, and I'd done it on my terms. 5 years after the gallery show, I was preparing for my first major museum retrospective. The Metropolitan Museum of Art was hosting Phoenix, a Decade of Digital Revolution. I was 23, the age I'd died in my first life. The night before the opening, I stood in the empty museum, looking at 10 years of work. Every piece told a story. Every image was a piece of my soul, my pain, my triumph. A docent approached, an elderly woman with kind eyes. "Excuse me, miss, we're closed for setup." "I'm Phoenix," I said. "I wanted to see it before the crowds." Oh my goodness, of course, please take your time." She paused. "If you don't mind me saying, your work saved my granddaughter's life." I turned to her. "What?" She was in a terrible situation with her family. Abuse, neglect, awful things. She saw your story, read about how you survived and thrived, and it gave her hope. She left. She's safe now, building her own life. She's 18 and already showing her photography in small galleries. The docent's eyes were wet. "I wanted to thank you. You showed her that survival was possible, that success was possible, that she didn't have to let her family define her." I couldn't speak. I just nodded. "The world is better because you're in it," the docent said. "I hope you know that." After she left, I sat on a bench in front of my earliest piece, the one I'd drawn in the library at 14, the phoenix rising from ashes. I thought about that 12-year-old girl in the hospital, about the choice she'd made to walk away rather than wait for people who would never come. I thought about all the versions of myself I'd been, the dying woman in my first life, the reborn child, the struggling teenager, the anonymous artist, the woman I was now. I thought about my family, broken, scattered, diminished by their own cruelty. And I thought about all the girls out there like I'd been, trapped and alone and desperate, who'd see my story and know that escape was possible. "I did it," I whispered to my younger self, to the ghost of the girl I'd been. "I survived, I won, and I made sure they never forget what they lost." The phoenix in the painting seemed to glow in the museum lights, wings spread wide, triumphant. I'd risen from ashes that were meant to consume me, and I'd never looked back. The retrospective ran for 6 months. It broke attendance records, it toured internationally, it inspired countless young artists. I turned 24 in Tokyo at the opening of the Japanese leg of the tour. I was surrounded by people who valued my work, respected my talent, and celebrated my success. I received a letter that day, forwarded by my assistant. The handwriting was shaky, uncertain. My mother's. I almost threw it away, but curiosity made me open it. "Dear Evelyn, I don't expect you to read this. I don't expect you to care. But I needed to write it anyway. You were right about everything. Your father and I failed you in every possible way. We let our favoritism blind us to your suffering. We chose comfort over courage, appearances over truth. We forgot you at that hospital, and we never truly looked for you when you left. We didn't deserve you then. We don't deserve you now. I don't ask for forgiveness. I just want you to know that I see it now. All of it. The neglect, the cruelty, the profound failure of our love. I see what we did to you, and I see what you became despite us. I'm proud of you. I know I have no right to those words, but they're true. You're extraordinary. You always were. I was just too broken to see it. I hope you're happy. I hope you're surrounded by people who see your worth. I hope you never doubt yourself the way I made you doubt yourself. I'm sorry I wasn't the mother you deserved. I hope someday you can be the mother you needed if you choose to have children. I hope you break the cycle I perpetuated. You don't need to respond to this. I understand. With love I don't deserve to feel, Mom. I read it twice, then folded it carefully and put it in a drawer. It didn't change anything. Words couldn't undo decades of harm, couldn't erase the hospital abandonment, or the stolen opportunities, or the first life I'd lived in misery. But it was something. An acknowledgement. A witness to the truth. I didn't write back, but I didn't throw the letter away either. I'm 30 now. Phoenix is a household name, my work displayed in museums worldwide, my influence undeniable. I've mentored like dozens of young artists, I've funded shelters and scholarships and programs, I've built a family of choice. Mrs. Chen and Marcus and other artists and friends who chose to love me without conditions. I'm happy. Genuinely, deeply, surprisingly happy. Sometimes I still dream about my first life, dying alone, unloved, forgotten. I wake up gasping, reaching for the success that surrounds me now like a shield. But mostly I dream about the future, about the art I'll create, about the lives I'll touch, about the empire I'll build that no one can ever take away. I think about Claire sometimes, working her coffee shop job and taking night classes. We've never spoken again, but I see her art sometimes online. It's good, honest, earned. I think about my parents growing old in a house that's too big for them now, living with the weight of their choices. I don't hate them anymore. Hate requires energy I'd rather spend creating. I've learned that the best revenge isn't destruction. It's building something so magnificent that their absence from it is the punishment. I've learned that the opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference. And I've learned that the girl they forgot, that scared, hurt, abandoned child, was never actually forgotten. She was just waiting, patient and determined, for the right moment to rise. And when she did, she didn't just survive, she soared.